Next, on Currents News, the Pope is getting ready for a major announcement. His conclusions about married priests and women deacons are only hours away. We have team coverage. The votes are being counted in New Hampshire, the outcome likely to have a big impact on the race for the White House.
How an 87-year-old maintenance man is making a difference at one Catholic high school in Queens. I'm Tim Harfman, and that story is coming up.
Plus, caring Catholics at a Queens parish are doing all they can to help Puerto Rico recover from powerful earthquakes. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. There's a great anticipation tonight over what Pope Francis is expected to do tomorrow when he could clear the way for married priests and women deacons. He's releasing his findings after that big October summit on the Amazon in an apostolic exhortation. Currents News' Emily Druby reports.
It's the day Catholics around the world have been waiting for since the Amazon summit. Beloved Amazon, that's the name of the Pope's highly anticipated summary document from the October summit. It's scheduled to be released tomorrow, February 12th. While the document has been kept under wraps, a group of U.S. bishops visiting Rome were given a preview while meeting with the Holy Father.
But in his answers, you really got to learn a lot about what's close to his heart and what drives him, what his passion is about the church.
Key reasons why the document is highly anticipated: the possibility the Pope would okay married priests for the Amazon and allow women to be ordained deacons. But the bishops who sat down with the Holy Father are saying otherwise.
He didn't say much about the two pressing issues about the ordination of women deacons and the ordination of married priests. I think he left it a little bit open.
Still, Francis didn't slam the door shut to making changes.
He did not actually believe in that ordination of married men, but yet, what are we going to do with all those people who are deprived of the Eucharist?
Archbishop Wester says only the Pope knows what's going to be in the final document, despite all the attention given to married priests.
Don't assume that you know what happened until you talk to somebody who knows what happened. It's what's not going to be said that'll be, people will notice, so.
The Holy Father is expected to focus heavily on environmental issues in his Beloved Amazon exhortation. Emily Druby, Currents News.
Stay with us for more on this important story. The national correspondent for The Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, is moments away. He'll have an insider's look at the expectations that are growing over what the Pope's going to decide. That's still ahead in this newscast. The polls are closing in New Hampshire right now, and Democrats are hoping things go smoother than Iowa. The race is tight, and whoever wins could move atop the crowded candidate field. Mary Maloney reports from Manchester.
The first of many ballots cast in the 2020 New Hampshire primary, a contest that has the potential to reshape the Democratic race for president. Democrats here and across the country looking for clarity tonight, following the confusion of last week's Iowa caucuses, where technical issues led to a delay in reporting results for several days. Senator Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg both claimed victory in Iowa, hoping for more success tonight.
And I think what you're seeing here in New Hampshire, you saw it in Iowa, I think you're seeing it all over this country.
We have momentum right now and are in a great position for a good night.
Sanders, along with Senator Elizabeth Warren,
This is democracy,
could reap the benefits of home court advantage, each representing a nearby state. New Hampshire is also critical for former Vice President Joe Biden, who finished fourth in Iowa and who has already tried to lower expectations for New Hampshire.
I'm anxious to get to South Carolina and Nevada.
And Senator Amy Klobuchar, hoping to keep her campaign going for the long haul.
Well, what they want is a candidate that can bring people in.
As for voters here in the Granite State, many say they know exactly what they're looking for.
We want someone who actually knows what they're doing and has plans and can put them into action, has experience and knowledge.
But which candidate they'll choose in the voting booth?
Buttigieg or Amy or
Well, Elizabeth
will be revealed to the nation soon. In Manchester, New Hampshire, I'm Mary Maloney.
President Trump is on the ballot in New Hampshire, but he's not facing serious opposition. In a state where voters can cross party lines, he told supporters at a rally in Manchester last night what he thinks Republicans should do.
So I hear a lot of Republicans tomorrow will vote for the weakest candidate possible of the Democrats. Does that make sense? You people wouldn't do that.
Trump said he didn't know who is the weakest candidate. The feds are ramping up their fight against sanctuary cities. The Justice Department is now suing New Jersey and the Washington County where Seattle is located. Attorney General William Barr warns there is going to be a significant escalation in confronting the resistance of sanctuary cities where immigrants are protected from deportation.
We will consider taking action against any jurisdiction that or any politician who unlawfully obstructs the federal law enforcement function and the enforcement of our immigration laws.
The president has long criticized sanctuary cities and has made immigration a focus of his re-election campaign. The latest move follows the freeze on trusted traveler programs in New York. The state is suing the White House over that. There's a big push tonight to protect infants who survive an abortion. The Senate holding hearings today on a law to guarantee the babies receive proper medical care. Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse is the author of the bill.
This hearing is about making sure that every newborn baby has a fighting chance, whether she's born in a labor and delivery ward or whether she's born in an abortion clinic. That's what the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act does. That's all it does.
The bill is in the spotlight a year after Virginia Governor Ralph Northam suggested medical care could be denied to abortion survivors. Tonight, we have an update on a Queens parish's nonstop drive to help Puerto Rico recover. The island's been rocked by recent earthquakes, and thousands of people are still without permanent places to live. Currents News' Tim Harfman reports from Sunnyside on the campaign to help them.
An outpouring of support from Catholics in Queens. They felt the suffering and the pain that the people of Puerto Rico have been going through. Juan Rodriguez spearheaded the donation drive at Queen of Angels Church in Sunnyside to help those suffering from the series of powerful earthquakes that hit the island. He went door to door and called other churches to get them on board the campaign. Though Juan's no longer accepting donations, there's a lot of packing to do to make sure items like peanut butter and canned goods make it to the people of Puerto Rico who have so little. Thousands of people are still displaced. Juan described what one friend on the island is going through. In his own experience, people have faith. Things are going to get better, but you'd be surprised. The tremors and the earthquakes can test your faith. Faith also seemed tested after emergency hurricane aid was discovered in warehouses 2 years after Maria came ashore. Juan believes that made some Catholics in Queens hesitant this time. They were afraid. They felt that if it's going to be put in a warehouse and nobody's going to look at it. So he's focused on getting the items into the right hands. We're discussing and trying to network with different groups to make sure that these items get taken to particular churches that could help support the people. Meanwhile, the House approved more than $4.5 billion in disaster relief. President Trump is threatening to veto the bill. In Sunnyside, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News. The disaster from the deadly coronavirus is still severe tonight, with the death toll surging above the 1,000 mark. Nearly all the victims are Chinese. More than 42,000 people in China are infected. But there is hope that the outbreak is peaking. There's been a drop in new cases of about 20% today. Outside mainland China, almost 500 people have fallen ill and 2 deaths are reported. In the United States, there are 12 confirmed cases, and today the Federal Reserve Chairman said the rapid spread of the disease could pose broad economic risks for our country. Jerome Powell telling Congress the Fed is on guard and ready to act if the impact becomes too great. But for now, the central bank will hold interest rates steady. While China struggles to contain the outbreak, Beijing is ordering factories and farmers to get up and running again, but not many are listening. The streets, malls, and restaurants in the Chinese capital are mostly empty. David Culver reports that in China, it is far from business as usual.
You're looking at the post-Lunar New Year holiday rush on the streets of Beijing. Most years, you'd see millions of migrant workers pouring back into China's capital. But this year, a much slower pace and thin crowds. The normally bustling shopping districts, desolate, on the outside at least. And think you'd find more life indoors? Health checkpoints like this one screen people at every entrance of this shopping mall. Sanitized only to enter a sterile and near-empty space.
On any other given Sunday, especially in winter, malls like this one would be packed with people. Instead, they're pretty much the only ones here.
Popular Beijing restaurants, like this one known for their Sichuan cuisine, have had no need to change out the white tablecloths for weeks. Many are scared to even talk face-to-face to others, let alone share a meal with them. But there's still a need to make money. And there's still a demand for fresh produce. Instead of wasting their supplies, the restaurant staff has set up tables outside their storefront, creating a makeshift farmers markets of sorts. It's convenient for customers like Zhang Rui. He's been working remotely in IT for about a week. His company, like many here in Beijing, encouraging their employees to work from home. But he's noticed a slump in company productivity.
It's not very convenient if colleagues are not physically together.
Zhang is still among the fortunate ones. The outbreaks left many without jobs to clock into. Huang Qiyun video chatted with us from Anhui in central China. She, like many migrant workers, had expected to travel back to Beijing to return to her job as a nanny.
My boss told me that he would leave for America. I asked him when he would come back, but he said he might not return.
And even if she wanted to return to Beijing immediately, she would be expected to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. That's 2 more weeks without pay. Many migrant workers facing similar financial struggles. As the government's efforts to stop the spread of the virus intensify, for now at least, there is no containing the growing economic uncertainty. David Culver, Beijing.
As the virus health crisis rages on, today is the World Day of the Sick. The Pope is sending a message to healthcare professionals and volunteers around the world. He's urging them to adopt the human warmth and personalized approach of Christ. Francis is proposing that doctors and other medical workers embrace the sick in their entirety, discarding no one. The Holy Father says those who are ill attract the eyes and heart of Jesus. There's a lot more news headed your way. The expectations are high on what Pope Francis will say tomorrow about married priests and women deacons. Christopher White is here with a look ahead. There's a new Catholic leader taking charge for now in Manila. We'll tell you who he is and what he's criticizing. And later, you'll hear from someone who gave the gift of life after hearing the voice of God. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. More now on our top story tonight, the Pope's decisions on what he wants to happen after the Amazon summit. The hot button topics the Holy Father is considering include married priests and women deacons. Francis's conclusions are due tomorrow in a highly anticipated document. And tonight, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, is here to look ahead. And Christopher, what exactly is this document and why does it matter?
So we've been waiting on this document since October when, after a month of meetings in Rome where bishops from around the world sort of looked at the land and the people and the pastoral problems of the Amazon to sort of see, what comes next. And so this document is known as an apostolic exhortation, and this is the Pope sort of giving his concluding remarks. It is sort of official magisterial teaching, and so we will await to see what he has to say.
Well, married priests and women deacons have been discussed in the Catholic world ever since the summit in October. What are you looking for tomorrow?
So, let's go back to the beginning of all this. The reason the Pope called this summit to begin with was, there are a lot of people in the Amazon that just don't see priests very often, sometimes once, twice a year at most. And what the Pope is trying to do is provide greater access to the sacraments to them. Just this past week, he met with bishops from the U.S. where they asked him, what are we going to find here? And the Pope said, I think we need more discernment. And so I think that those remarks are perhaps a bit telling that the Pope himself hasn't even made up his mind yet, perhaps. perhaps.
Interesting. And what are some of the other major themes we can expect the Pope to touch on?
Well, I think we're going to hear a lot about the environment, the need for global collaboration between governments and the church and civil authorities. I mean, this is something that he's decried over and over again, sort of the deforestation and the long history of colonialism and corruption. And I think the Pope is just sort of trying to put a spot and say what happens in the Amazon really affects the whole planet. And so we all have a global stake in this, so let's come together and rally around this region and love it.
So when will the document actually be released, and how can we all watch it?
Sure. So the document drops tomorrow at noon Rome time, so 6 o'clock in the morning for folks on the East Coast. There's a big Vatican press conference that'll follow at 1 o'clock Rome time. And of course, we'll have continued coverage here on Currents. And the document, of course, will be on the Vatican's website for people to read in its entirety.
All right. It'll be interesting to see and read what he has to say. Christopher White, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
We're getting word from the Vatican on what are likely to be key themes for the Pope's first trip of the new year. Francis is traveling to the island nation of Malta on May 31st. Migration and corruption are two issues where Francis has often raised his voice. The Holy Father recently praised Malta for its welcoming of migrants. Still, the Maltese government is under fire for the murder of a journalist who had exposed corruption. The Pope has often made forceful anti-corruption statements in the past. A new administrator for the Manila Archdiocese has been selected by Pope Francis. Bishop Broderick Pabillo is a vocal critic of the Philippines' war on drugs. He takes over on a temporary basis after Cardinal Luis Tagla assumed a new Vatican post earlier this week. The Vatican usually appoints an administrator to run a diocese when it becomes vacant. Controversial German Cardinal Reinhard Marx is stepping down from his post as leader of Germany's bishops. He started a so-called binding process in the country, examining the German church that raised concerns from the Vatican. The cardinal is citing his age as the reason for relinquishing his role heading up the German Bishops' Conference. Still to come on Currents News, a gatekeeper who's a bright light for Catholic students in Queens, no matter the weather. On the feast day of Our Lady of Lourdes, we'll show you highlights of a new stage production about the Blessed Virgin and the young girl she appeared to. And before we go to break, a programming note about our special series on human trafficking. Survivors get their voices back.
I didn't actively make this choice. Like something, right? Like for that to for you to fully understand that and really believe it is a big step.
Courageous women share their personal stories of healing in the conclusion of our special series, Human Trafficking Exposed, Thursday on Currents News. Working diligently for decades, meet the man who makes the morning brighter for students of an all-girls Catholic high school in Queens. The students at the Mary Lewis Academy can always count on two things when they enter school every day: a quality Catholic education and a friendly face to greet them. Currents News' Tim Harfman reports the simple words, "Good morning," mean a lot to the students.
Mornings can be hard for some people, but for this maintenance man, each one is a
good morning.
Meet John Cherry.
Good morning, how are you? Good morning. Good morning.
He's the gatekeeper, greeting students and faculty as they arrive at the Mary Lewis Academy in Queens. Even a rainy day doesn't stop Mr. Cherry from being a ray of sunshine.
When he can tell something's wrong with us, he'll like pat us on the back and be like, cheer up, and it'll really just stick with me through the day.
Not all of us are morning people, but he is always so enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic at the age of 87.
Morning!
Morning!
Did you know that he's 87 years old?
No, I did not know he was 87, wow.
You're 87 years old. You could be retired and be with your wife and your grandkids. Why are you still working?
Because I want to. I've been working all my life.
He started on a South Carolina farm and later moved to New York with stints at LaGuardia Airport and in the kitchen of the Marriott Hotel. Mr. Cherry thought he retired 2 decades ago, but the all-girls Catholic high school had a need, so he started pitching in.
I thank God every day I can get up. I got the good Lord over there working over me.
For his dedication, he received one of the Academy's highest honors, the Peacemaker Award.
As long as you can be of service and wish to serve a community, that it's a lifelong endeavor. You know, service never ends, and I think that's a great inspiration for all of us.
I'm happy, you know.
Why?
Everybody knows me.
Morning, Mr. Chair. He makes us feel so welcome, and he reminds us that there's a place for all of us here, and we definitely consider him part of the family.
Hearing the students talk about you the way that they do, what does that mean to you?
I feel like I've done my job.
He plans on doing his job as long as possible, adding the cherry on top to a good morning. In Jamaica Estates, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Today marks the feast day for a famous vision of Mary. Our Lady of Lourdes is widely loved by Catholics around the world. Her shrine is one of the most visited, with around 6 million pilgrims coming to the French town each year. The shrine is also known for its healing powers. Thousands have claimed their serious medical conditions were cured after visiting. On this date in 1858, Our Lady appeared for the first time to 14-year-old Bernadette Soubirous. There's a new musical about the Lourdes apparitions that's a smashing success. The production looks at the relationship between Our Lady and young Saint Bernadette. Claudia Torres reports the production has even impressed Pope Francis.
In only 3 months, 70,000 people have seen this musical about the life of Bernadette of Lourdes, recreating the apparitions of the Blessed Mother to the young shepherd girl in 1858. This particular production focuses on the evolution of the relationships within Bernadette's own family.
After watching the musical, many people leave the theater with a desire to reconnect with their parents and to hug them again, despite their difficulties. Bernadette had to fight against people in the church and against her family. In the end, it was her father who was always close to her. Her mother was too, but for her, it was difficult at first. What happened to Bernadette upset her family life, which made it hard to accept.
The story recounts how the apparitions of the Blessed Mother completely changed Bernadette's life and environment. The script is taken from official reports from that time period. The costumes were designed to accurately depict the style of the era, nearly 200 years ago. Fatima Lucarini says the best part of the musical is its origin. The idea came from the grandmother of one of the producers.
The project was born out of the blue. While the two producers were in the Pyrenees for another job, Roberto remembered that when he was a young boy, his grandma would tell him she prayed for him often to Our Lady of Lourdes. That's why on one of his days off, he said, "I want to visit the grotto." Several people joined him. It was such a strong and magical moment for them that, upon returning, Roberto said, "We have to make a show about Bernadette."
The musical will return to Lourdes in April. It will remain there 7 months before making its way through Canada, Brazil, Argentina, Lebanon, and Belgium. Before their international tour, the actors got the chance to greet the Pope in Rome. They even dedicated one of the musical songs to him. In Rome, Claudia Torres, Currents News.
Finally tonight, a kidney donation that one woman says was divine intervention. Chet Bennett and Acia Williams have been friends for 20 years. After being on dialysis for over a year, Chet needed a kidney. When Acia found out, she says she heard the voice of God.
God told me right at that moment that I was his donor.
I thank God that whatever voice it was, that she paid attention to it.
Acia turned out to be a perfect match, and the operation was a success. So in return for the gift of life, Chet made her dream a reality, gifting her a beauty salon. Both say they've been doing fine since their surgery early last year. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.